Hey Optimancers, Chris here. So I just completed the survey for Playtest 6 and took quite a while, but I want to go over what my responses were. And like last time, I did a document that includes all the comments I have that I'm going to share in the video description. So if you want to go back to refer to it, if you fill out your own survey, then please feel free to do so. Also, if you want to cut and paste, I would suggest make it your own words, but feel free to cut and paste bits and pieces if you like as well. It doesn't bother me. Which sections of the Unearthed Arcana are you interested in providing feedback for? And I chose all of them. Then we moved on to the Bard. Have you played a Bard character before? Yes. Have you playtested the Bard class in this playtest? No, I haven't. And how satisfied was I overall? I was satisfied, and here's what I said in my comments. I said, I really liked the reaction-based bardic inspiration, and I was disappointed to see that removed. I like the approach to spellcasting for this version, where the Bard is now like a jack of all trades for spells. Although I haven't tried this Bard yet, I'm definitely excited to try it, despite the loss of reaction-based inspiration. I think the new version of Counter Charm is much better. It's a feature that I won't forget about anymore and actually use. There's only one feature on this Bard I really don't like, and that's Superior Inspiration. This requires that the Bard have no uses of inspiration left to benefit. I don't think it should require that you be completely out. You should just get your 2 uses back regardless. Then it said, how satisfied were you with the elements of the Bard as presented in the article? And you can see my ratings right here. And here are the specific comments I made for each one. For Bardic Inspiration, reaction-based inspiration was really nice because I didn't have to remind other players that they had inspiration. Spellcasting, I really liked the choice of having which spell list to choose from. Font of Inspiration, I like the option to convert a spell slot into a use of inspiration. I much prefer this at level 5 over level 7, that's what it was in the last playtest. Counter Charm, the old version of Counter Charm is really bad. I'm way happier with this version. Magical Secrets, being able to choose from any of the spell lists is really cool. I'm excited to try this. Superior Inspiration, I would like this feature if the part about needing to be completely out of inspiration was removed. And Words of Creation, this is a cool capstone, and along with the improvements to Power Word Kill, I might use either option. Then it asked me about College of Dance, and you can see my responses right here. I put dissatisfied for Dazzling Footwork and Leading Evasion, but I said I was satisfied overall. For comments on the College of Dance, I said overall, I do like the College of Dance. I think it's a fun concept. I am concerned that there's a whole lot of power packed into 6th level. Both features are very potent, and a Bard subclass getting a better version of evasion than the Rogue and Monk doesn't feel right, never mind it being gained a level earlier. On the other hand, I don't think Dazzling Footwork is good enough to sacrifice wearing armor for. Unarmored defense will mean a worse armor class than a Bard wearing medium armor and a shield with the medium armor training at 1st level feat, and you aren't getting much in return. An unarmed strike that you won't use very often, and when you do, it's based off an ability score that isn't the one my Bard is focusing on. And my comments on the elements of the College of Dance subclass? Dazzling Footwork, I said I would be inclined to just wear armor and ignore this feature. You don't get enough of the agile strikes to make it worth the sacrifice. Inspiring Movement, I said I like it as it is. Leading Evasion, I said I don't think this subclass should get evasion earlier than the Monk or Rogue, especially if it's better than the plain evasion. Tandem Footwork, I said this is a good idea, but it does seem quite powerful. Initiative bonuses for the whole party with that kind of range seems like a lot for a 6th level feature. And Irresistible Dance, I said Otto's Irresistible Dance is such an obvious spell for a College of Dance Bard, I think this should absolutely stay as is. Then they asked me about the other subclasses. So I said I was very satisfied with the College of Glamour, I said I was satisfied with the College of Lore, and I said I was satisfied with the College of Valor. And then my comments on College of Glamour were, I like all the changes made for the College of Glamour subclass. I like how Beguiling Magic has built-in synergy with Mantle of Majesty. I've always found it difficult to set up Mantle of Majesty with an opponent who's charmed. I like this version of Unbreakable Majesty a lot more. For College of Lore, I said this is definitely better than the College of Lore as presented in the Expert Classes playtest. This feels much more like the College of Lore I'm used to. I'm a bit confused why cutting words no longer requires that the target be able to hear you. I imagined this feature is you saying something that evoked a response from the target. it still seems to be described that way. And on College of Valor, I said, this looks very similar to the College of Valor in the 2014 Player's Handbook, which is fine by me. I've always liked the subclass. Then it moved on to the Cleric, and I said, yes, I've played one, but no, I haven't playtested the new version. But I was satisfied with this version overall. And these were my comments on the class. I said, overall, I'm really happy with this, with a couple of exceptions. I much prefer Channel Divinity now, with its uses tied to your level in Cleric. I like Divine Spark already from the previous playtest, but it's even better now. Turn Undead makes a lot more sense with the undead being frightened rather than dazed, because in the last playtest that's what they were. Here's the stuff I don't like. Divine Intervention is really abusable. You shouldn't be able to cast spells like Glyph of Warding, Hollow, or Planar Binding with an action. If this was restricted to spells that take an action to cast, I think it'd be fine. Improved Blessed Strikes gives the potent spellcasting option the ability to add temporary hit points when you deal damage to a creature with a divine cantrip. What's to keep players from spamming this outside of combat? Have a bag of rats or something to deal damage with cantrips. And Greater Divine Intervention is just way too much. Wish provides all kinds of non-spell options that you shouldn't be able to use over and over again in downtime. I could, for example, with enough uses, make every player character resistant to every damage type. Then they asked how satisfied I was with the elements of the Cleric as presented in the article, and I was very satisfied with most of them. Commune, I thought, who cares, right? So I just said satisfied. It's basically you just prepared the Commune spell, and I don't care one way or the other. Divine Intervention and Greater Divine Intervention, I said very dissatisfied because they definitely need to be changed. And Improved Blessed Strikes, I said I was dissatisfied because there's that loophole. And for the most part, I just kind of repeated the same stuff I said in the general comments, but with Divine Order, I added that I like this being a first level feature, so I don't have to change my armor and weapons when I get to level 2, because if I suddenly get proficiency in them at level 2, that's what I'd have to do. I appreciated that Smite Undead had a clarification that it didn't end the turn effect. And with Commune, I just didn't leave a comment, and I did that more and more as I went on, because there's a lot of stuff that I don't really have an opinion on. Like, if Commune stays on the Cleric features, fine, and if it doesn't, fine. I just don't care. Then they asked me about the subclasses for Cleric, so I said I was satisfied with the Life Domain, very satisfied with the Light Domain, and very satisfied with the Trickery Domain, and if they had had something to the right of very satisfied, I would have clicked that for Trickery Domain. And these were the comments I had for the Life Domain. I said, I've never been a fan of the Preserve Life feature. It has that annoying limitation where it couldn't restore hit points over half the character's maximum. This limitation really slowed down gameplay, so I am happy to see a redesign. And the new version of Preserve Life looks interesting, but I think it's probably too expensive. 3 Channel Divinity uses for a 3rd level spell doesn't seem like a fair trade to me. I think Supreme Healing should be redesigned so it makes the heal and mass heal spells better, because they both do a set amount of healing, or redesign the spells so they use dice. One way or the other, I figure Supreme Healing should do something with the spells that you're probably casting at high levels in order to heal people. For the Light Domain, I said overall, I'm happy with this version of the Light Domain. Revealing Light would be better if the See Invisibility spell removed the invisible condition entirely from invisible creatures, as right now they still benefit from the advantage-disadvantage even if they're seen with See Invisibility. And I wonder why Corona of Light has a 1-minute duration, since you can just use it over and over again. So yeah, that's their capstone, and basically it lasts a minute, but there's no limit on how often you use it. So what I figure is you're going to have players who just say, just be aware, I'm constantly reusing this every minute. And I don't like stuff like that. Like, just increase the duration. And then my favorite subclass, Trickery Domain. I said my favorite subclass in all of D&D, not just the playtest. Invoke Duplicity looks like it will now be the most fun feature in the game. I am so excited to try this out. High five the designer who came up with this for me. Obviously, I am thrilled with this. The only problem is I might never play another subclass of Cleric ever again. And on the War Domain, I said War Priest not requiring using the attack action to use, much improved. I have mixed feelings about Guiding Strike now requiring a reaction to boost their own attack, because before it didn't. and I don't think I want to concentrate on Shield of Faith with my 6th level Cleric, even if I do get 2 targets, and that's their 6th level feature. Maybe Shield of Faith shouldn't use concentration at all. Then I would really like this. So then I moved on to the Druid, and for the most part I was satisfied or very satisfied. The only thing I said I was dissatisfied with was Wild Shape. My comments on the Druid overall were, keeping species traits when wild shaped is weird. Like, does my Turtle Druid keep its shell? I'm really not happy that as a DM, I will now have players browsing through the Monster Manual and Adventure Pass and everything else to try to find the best wild shaped forms. Now the onus is on me to be the bad guy who won't allow the players to do that. If templates for wild shape are gone, and they're gone, people, I'm not even going to bother telling them to bring templates back because it ain't going to happen. Then just picking a stat block from anywhere as long as it says Beast isn't the right replacement. This could be okay if there was a curated list the player chooses from, right from the player's handbook, and this feature specified that the wild shape options are on that list. That said, there are a lot of things about this version of wild shape I do like. I like that the Druid can still speak, that they keep their proficiencies, that they keep their hit points, and that it's a bonus action to use. I don't understand how Beast spells works. This is the one where you can cast spells while you're in wild shape. How is my wild shape Druid supposed to provide a material component? Because the previous playtest dealt with that, this one doesn't. And then Archdruid shouldn't require the Druid be out of wild shapes to get one back. That seems ridiculous. And these were my comments on the elements of the Druid. So Druidic, I said adding Speak with Animals to this is a good change. Primal Order, I said I like this. But Warden is probably the better of the two in terms of balance. Like, everyone's going to take Warden, right? And then Animal Companion, always liked it, still do. Wild Shape, I like this more than the 2014 Wild Shape, but it still needs work. I don't want my players shopping through the Monster Manual for forms. Wild Resurgence, I said I like this, though I don't know why you need to be out of Wild Shape uses in order to use this, because that's a limitation there, and I don't really get why it has that limitation. Elemental Fury, I was very happy with. Commune with Nature, same thing. I didn't leave a comment, like, who cares, right? And then Improved Elemental Fury, I said these are good upgrades. I think they could use this as an idea for fixing the upgrade to Blessed Strikes for the Cleric. And then Archdruid. Please just let the Druid get a wild shape back when they roll initiative, whether they're out of uses or not. Pretty please. So then it asked me about the Druid subclasses. I said I was very satisfied with Circle of the Land. I said I was dissatisfied with the Circle of the Moon. And I said I was satisfied with the Circle of the Sea overall. And then, of course, I had comments for all that stuff. So for Circle of the Land, I said, this is really great. I love being able to change my selected spell list. Land's Aid looks fun. The free casting with Natural Recovery looks great. And Nature's Sanctuary looks like fun. It is the first time I'm excited to play a Circle of the Land Druid. Comments on the Circle of the Moon subclass. The scaling of Wild Shape seems off here, as it is in the 2014 Player's Handbook. The forms don't scale quickly enough, and the number of forms you can select at the highest challenge rating keeps going down, with fewer and fewer cool things you can do. Now, I know that they're going to add more higher challenge rating beasts, like they said they were, but it's still not going to be as many, right? Like, I'm sure that we're not going to have as many challenge rating 5 beasts as we have challenge rating 1 beasts, right? Anyways, that said, there are some things I like here, like the Druid being able to keep their armor class, and the Druid getting the temporary hit points. I like the Moonbeam enhancement, but a Moon Druid has always had good forms available when they get to level 10, because they had elementals, right? But not anymore. Now Wild Shape is good at level 3, and it gets worse and worse as you gain levels. For Circle of the Sea, I said, this seems like it will be so much fun to play. I do wonder, though, if it's maybe too powerful. Now, apparently, not everyone thinks that. Some people say it's bad, but I definitely think it is good and maybe too powerful. Another thing that concerns me a bit is I think thematically I'd want to take this subclass with a Sea Elf, Triton, or Water Genasi, but those species are going to find that the 6th level feature is redundant, because the 6th level feature gives you a swim speed. They already have a swim speed. And I wonder if the character that already has water breathing and a swim speed, if they could get something else, like maybe a bonus to their swim speed or something. And then it asks for individual comments on the Circle of the Sea subclass, and I didn't comment on circle spells. With Wrath of the Sea, I said it looks like a lot of fun, but is it too powerful? Maybe it shouldn't last so long. And with Iguanic Affinity, I think I already mentioned this, and Stormborn, I said extremely good. I like this thematically a lot. It also seems pretty powerful. Though, if they reduce the duration of Wrath of the Sea, that would reduce the duration of Stormborn as well, so I think you could, hit two birds with one stone. And then Oceanic Gift, with Wrath of the Sea and Stormborn being so good, sharing it is great. And then we moved on to the monk. So we know what's going to happen here. So have I played a monk in 5th edition before this Unearthed Arcana? Yes. Have I playtested the monk class? I playtested it just a couple days ago. How satisfied was I overall with the monk class as presented in the article? Very dissatisfied. And comments on the monk overall as presented in this Unearthed Arcana. So these were my comments on the monk overall. I said, I have a lot of gripes with this one, so I'm just going to narrow it down to my biggest disappointments. Weapon Mastery is really cool, and I was excited to play a monk with Weapon Mastery, but it's basically a non-feature. The weapons all do bad damage now because they don't use the martial arts die, so a weapon with Weapon Mastery is just worse than an unarmed strike now, and unarmed strikes don't get Weapon Mastery. That's so much of a letdown. Almost all the other classes that get Weapon Mastery say that you choose a weapon, quote, you are proficient with. But Monk restricts to simple weapons, so even if they take the weapon training feat, they still don't really benefit from this. I thought we were going to get a Weapon Mastery property for unarmed strikes for monks. It was such a letdown for that not to be there. By giving the monk simple weapon proficiencies only, they are locked out of almost every feat they might ever want. When I playtested a monk, I had trouble finding any feat that was even marginally useful for a monk. I ended up taking Grappler, even though I couldn't get a decent strength score for a monk, but there just weren't any good options. And the monk is just as short rest hungry as they've always been. I thought the direction was to move away from this. Now the monk is really the only class that constantly needs another short rest. Every feature being tied to discipline points really sucks out the versatility of the monk, because if you like one of those features, that's where your discipline points go, so you don't do any of the other cool stuff. I don't like the new version of Stunning Strike. Once per turn, fine, but the lower duration and usable with ranged weapons are big misses for me. Monk used to get immunity to poison damage. Now they don't even get resistance. Please, just let the 15th level monk get their 4 discipline points back without having to be out of discipline. That is so frustrating. I do not understand at all why barbarians are getting so much better, fighters are getting so much better, and the poor monk gets some improvements, some areas they're weaker, so the whole thing is a wash. And then they don't even benefit from their weapon mastery. They get locked out of all the best feats, and I playtested this only to confirm my dread about how this would work out, and now I never really want to play this monk again. It's just so lackluster. This being the last class released was a mistake, because it's the absolute worst of the bunch, and it needs the most work. And now I'm worried there's not enough time to get this one right, because so much of this is wrong. The biggest monk fan I know, that's Colby from D4 Deep Dive, is so unhappy his favorite class had this happen to it, and then I ran out of characters to use. So that was the end of that comment. Then it asked how satisfied I was with the elements of the monk as presented in the article, and I mean, I don't hate every feature of the monk. Unarmored movement is fine, slow fall is fine, extra attack is fine, empowered strikes is fine, evasion is fine, acrobatic movement is fine, deflect energy is fine, disciplined survivor is fine. Everything else isn't fine. So they asked me to comment on the elements of the monk, and here's what I said. Martial arts. Why does the martial arts die no longer work with weapons? I mean, it seems to me it's so that you don't benefit from weapon mastery, right? Terrible. Unarmored defense. This is not enough defense for the monk, right? We all know the armor class of the monk, it's just not high enough. Weapon mastery. Why is this limited to simple weapons? You literally showed a monk using a glaive on the thumbnail of your introduction to this monk video. Martial discipline. Everything being tied to a single resource that comes back after a short rest has always been bad on the monk. This needed fixing. Step of the Wind still isn't good enough. Deflect missiles. This should not cost a discipline point to throw back the missile, and the damage is too low. Stunning Strike. Why is the duration lower? Why can this be used with ranged attacks? Heightened Metabolism. This is the wrong fix. Discipline points needs a total redesign. So, and I do think this. If they keep discipline points as they are, Heightened Metabolism is a patch, and I'll take it. But it's not the right fix. The right fix is get rid of discipline points and come up with a different way to fuel features that doesn't all come from the same source. Self-restoration. So instead of poison immunity, I get the ability to remove the poison condition and not even resistance to poison damage. Perfect Discipline. I should get 4 discipline points back whether I'm out or not. Or better yet, fixed discipline points. Superior Defense. The bonus action is better, the rest of it is worse. Defy Death. Probably not good enough to be a capstone. So I said I was satisfied with the Warrior of Shadow, and then Warrior of Elements. And I should mention that in my Monk subclass video that I did with Colby, I said I was going to be playtesting the Monk, and I was going to be playtesting the Warrior of Shadow. As it happens, what I ended up playtesting was the Warrior of Elements, because there was another player who was going to play the Warrior of Shadow, so I decided to change it to Warrior of Elements for myself. And then they decided they were going to play Barbarian, actually, so nobody played the Warrior of Shadow. I played the Warrior of Elements, and I will say, in regards to the Elemental Attunement feature of this subclass, I was pleasantly surprised, and I think the other players at the table were also pleasantly surprised with this feature. Environmental Burst, however, blows. And then the Warrior of Hand, I said very dissatisfied. So here were my comments. With the Warrior of Shadow, I said, this is super cool. All the features are thematic. They all work together well. My only concern is how constantly using darkness could negatively impact the other players at the table. I would like to see the Warrior of Shadow have the ability to make the area of darkness smaller. I think if they had that, it'd be fine. Then my comments on Warrior of the Elements. So again, this is the one I playtested. Elemental Attunement is super fun to play with at the table. I hope this subclass keeps the feature as is. So just a reminder, what it does is you spend 1 discipline point and you get a 10-minute duration effect where on your turn, your attacks, your unarmed strikes have 15-foot range. You normally have a 5-foot range. They increase it by 10, so it's 15 feet. And then when you hit somebody, you choose the damage type, and you can choose fire or lightning or cold or acid or any of those things. And then you get a push effect or a pull effect. So you can either push or pull the creature by 10 feet. It makes a strength saving throw. If it fails, you get to move it. And I found this to be really good. I was playing at 7th level, and we had casters in the party, and there were Sleet Storms, and there were Spirit Guardians, and Walls of Fire, and that probably affected things, because I was pushing and pulling things into and out of those spells, and it was pretty good. And everyone was kind of noticing, well, you're doing a fair amount of damage, but a lot of that damage was like, I push somebody into the Spirit Guardians, so they take Spirit Guardians damage, and then on top of the damage I'm doing, and so you add it all up, and then the damage is pretty good. I was also surprised, I took the Grappler feat, and I knew I wasn't going to be good with grappling because my strength wasn't high, but you know what, you make an unarmed strike, and once on your turn you can just try a grapple for free, so I did that, and it normally failed, but as a free attempt, I thought it was alright. But where it was really good, actually, is, and I don't think it's really built into the rules, but if you are going to grapple an ally, I think most DMs, certainly my DM did, I think most DMs would allow that ally to choose to be grappled. And so that came up a couple times because I had way more maneuverability than anyone. And what I would do is I'd grapple somebody. I could grapple them from 15 feet away because I have 15-foot reach. And then I could drag them, and you drag them at full speed if you have the grappler feat. And I could even do Step of the Wind, which I actually did use and spent discipline points on. I was dragging people all over the map, just where they needed to be, and that was actually fairly effective. What was not effective was Environmental Burst. So this is the one where you spend 2 discipline points and you get like a fireball, except you do 3 times your martial arts die. And that one was bad. I used it twice, and I think I did like 8 damage once and 10 damage once, and I hit a large number of creatures, but a lot of them made their saving throws, and even if you added all the damage together, it was less than I would have done just by punching. And the really crazy thing is, with it requiring 2 discipline points, just those 2 uses that weren't very good used over half my discipline points. So it's just way too expensive. Of course, you don't get enough discipline points. So I said Elemental Attunement was super fun to play at the table. I hope this subclass keeps the feature as is. I said Environmental Burst though. The damage is too low and the cost is too high. I was playing at 7th level. I used this twice. I did 8 damage once and 10 damage the next time, while the other players were casting Fireball. Just these 2 uses used over half my discipline points. This is a huge improvement over the 2014 version though. In my comments on the elements of the Warrior of Elements subclass, I said Elemental Attunement, please keep everything here. This feature was the highlight of the subclass for me. Environmental Burst, I said too low damage, too high cost, like 4 dice for 1 discipline point would be fine. Stride of Elements, I said this seems good. Of course, I was playing at 7th level, so I didn't get to try that one. And Elemental Epitome, I said it looks interesting and I want to try it out. And my comments on the Warrior of the Hand subclass. I said, I would never even playtest this. This is so obviously awful. When I playtested the Warrior of Elements, I could push or pull every turn with an unarmed strike for 10 minutes for 1 discipline point. Think about that. That's what the Warrior of Elements gets to do. With the Warrior of Open Hand, you have to spend a discipline point every turn to push. Open hand technique should be free once per turn. This seems obvious to me. It seemed obvious to Colby as well. Also, why a saving throw against losing a reaction? Like, that's such a small thing. Then Wholeness of Body. This requires discipline points now. Don't enough features already need discipline points? And I have to track uses as well? Like, if I'm going to use discipline points, then I shouldn't have to track my uses on top of that. Or have it not use discipline points, and then you track your uses, and that would actually be not bad. Fleet Step. So now there's a feature at 11th level that is in direct opposition to your 3rd level feature because both require a bonus action. What? Also, this should be a 2nd level feature for every monk, not an 11th level feature for a subclass that's already hurting. And then Quivering Palm. This costs too much and doesn't do enough. Compared to the 2014 version, this does less damage if the target makes their saving throw, and less damage if they fail their saving throw. So it's just worse now. Monks are not too powerful. They don't need their features toned down. Please let the designers know that monks aren't too powerful. They're too weak, and they are moving the monk in the wrong direction. As for this subclass, I think it needs to be done again from scratch. And thankfully, that was the end of talking about the monk. So then we were on to the Paladin, and I was satisfied with the Paladin. And I've got here my listing of satisfaction ratings for the features, and the only ones I gave lower marks for were Aura Protection and Abjure Foes. And in both cases, I think the issue with those is they might be too good. But here were my comments on the Paladin overall. I said the revisions here, for the most part, I think are improvements. I appreciate class identity spells are now Paladin only. I like that when you use Paladin Smite, you get a host of options rather than just additional damage. And I like getting a free use. But maybe if you don't choose the highest level option, it should be automatically cast at the higher slot. So, like if I'm a 9th level Paladin and I use Paladin Smite to do a free casting, I'm probably going to choose Blinding Smite because it's the 3rd level spell. But it would be nice if the lower level options could just be upcast at 3rd level, and then they would also be pretty viable options. So I do think it should be able to do that. I've always found Aura Protection to be overly powerful for the level, and so obviously that's still the case, and Lay on Hands as a bonus action sounds great to me. And comments on the elements of the Paladin, I have included all my comments here in the document, but I'm pretty much saying the same things I already said. On to the subclasses. So Oath of Devotion, I said very satisfied, and I said I'm pretty happy with this as is. I like making the capstone a bonus action a lot. And then for the Oath of Glory, I said I was satisfied, and I had more comments for this one. I said, this is the only Paladin subclass I really have a concern with. With the Tasha's version, Peerless Athlete gives advantage on attempts made to grapple or shove, and that's normally how I use it. Now with the new grapple and shoving rules, the Oath of Glory gets a downgrade because they no longer get any bonus for grappling and shoving. It would be nice if Peerless Athlete had something added to make up for that. Maybe disadvantage on the saving throw against Oath of Glory Paladin's grapple or shove attempts, for example. And I was very satisfied with both the Oath of Ancients as well as the Oath of Vengeance, and my comments for each one. So with the Oath of Ancients, I said the aura is so different. I need to play with it for a while to develop a strong opinion. But my first impression is that 3 resistances that you share, that's permanent, right? It's always on. It's still a pretty good feature. And for Oath of Vengeance, I said, I'm perfectly happy with this. I like the 7th level feature a lot better. So then on to the Ranger. And so I haven't released a video on the Ranger yet, but I will tell you that when I look at the Ranger in the 2014 Player's Handbook, and when a lot of players look at that Ranger, and I'm talking before Tasha's, a lot of people thought it was the weakest class in the game. Now, I always said it wasn't. I said the Monk was the weakest. And the reason I figured that people thought the Ranger was weaker was because the Ranger suffered from a lot of feel-bad features. As in, you look at the features of the class, and this one sucks, and this one sucks, and this one sucks. There's so many bad features, this must be a bad class. But what I actually think you have to do is ignore the bad features and only look at the good features and see what they add up to. And with the base Ranger, I mean, just the spellcasting alone does a lot of heavy lifting. And I looked at this playtest class, and I looked at what they did with a favored foe and what they did with expertise, and I thought, ooh, this Ranger isn't very good. And I was doing the video, and then I did my normal mathematical calculations to, work out damage, and I was shocked at the results. And what I realized is I'd fallen into the trap that I figure everybody else had looking at the 2014 Player's Handbook. I was looking at the bad features and not looking at what was good. And so, yeah, I was surprised to find that the Ranger actually does a whole lot of damage, more than the Fighter. And that's using Hunter's Mark. So not even using their best spells. And so it was shocking to me, and I will be doing a video on that and sharing those results in a while. But there's a lot to get through. But what I said is, with this Ranger, I said I was dissatisfied because you got feel-bad features on there. So yeah, the Ranger I think is okay mechanically in terms of strength. There's no reason to have feel-bad features on any of these classes. And look at this. Comments on the Ranger overall. I forgot to cut and paste it. Sorry, folks. You're not going to have anything to cut and paste there. So let's see what shows on my screen grab. All right. Comments on the Ranger overall. Obviously, I had a fair amount to say. And what shows here, I don't know why Hunter's Mark would be made worse. And then the Ranger gets to cast it a bunch of times for free. I'm not going to want to concentrate on a first level Hunter's Mark. So it feels wasted. By the way, I should mention in the damage calculations I did, I was upcasting Hunter's Mark, so I wasn't using this feature. If I have to concentrate on Hunter's Mark, at least make the upcasting to maximum spell slot level built into the free castings. But let's go over my comments on the elements of the Ranger. So, Deft Explorer, I said, I didn't like Natural Explorer on the 2014 Ranger. Tasha's fixed that. And now we're going back. Weapon Mastery. I love this on the Ranger. 2-weapon fighting is back for the Ranger. Great. Favorite enemy. I said free castings of a first level Hunter's Mark is pretty worthless after 5th level. That just feels bad. Deft Explorer improvement. I don't like this for the same reason I don't like Deft Explorer. And here are my ratings. So most of the stuff I'm still satisfied. But Deft Explorer, favorite enemy, Deft Explorer improvement, those ones I really don't like. And I forgot to do a screen grab for the Ranger subclasses, but here's what I said about them. So Beastmaster subclass, this is the one I did actually my damage calculations for, and boy does it deliver. I said, I like what's here, but I'll tell you what, I did some math calculations on that 11th level feature, and it's really potent. Like, more potent than any of the other 11th level features other subclasses are getting. So what it does is it gives your beast a second attack, and they benefit from your Hunter's Mark spell. So you're getting double benefit from Hunter's Mark and double attacks on the beast, and it adds up to a lot of damage. So the Beastmaster does a lot of damage. I will show you how. But not yet. That'll be in a future video. Then we went on to the Gloomstalker, and this one I actually said I was dissatisfied with. And I said, I don't understand the changes here. I am all for Gloomstalker redesign, because it is too much at level 3. I mean, we all know that. But it's not the extra attack on turn 1 that needed to go. It's the invisible to dark vision. I think that's the problem with the Gloomstalker. You take that out, and I think it's fine. And 11th level didn't need the feature replaced. And this one is really bad. Compare this to the Beastmaster at 11th level. And thematically, I am confused. The Gloomstalker I pictured as a stealthy, deadly ambusher. Now they're spooky. Don't get it. And the Hunter, I said, I think overall, I said I was satisfied. And I said I like the level 3 and 6 features. I think they're both big improvements over the 2014 version. The level 11 and 15 features, though, are boring. You just go back and pick again. And then we move on to the Rogue. So it says, have you played a Rogue character before? Of course. Have I playtested this Rogue class? Not yet. How satisfied was I? Very satisfied. And I did a video where I said the new Rogue is awesome. That wasn't clickbait. That's my sincere opinion. I said, I am thrilled with this Rogue, especially compared to the Expert Classes playtest version, but also compared to the 2014 version. Cunning Strike seems super cool. And then on the elements of the Rogue, I said Cunning Strike, this is super cool, very delighted with this. Improved Cunning Strike, Knockout, and Obscure seem a bit expensive, but it's still super cool. And I basically said very satisfied all the way down. Happy with this. And I realized I also didn't cut and paste the subclasses for Rogue. So here's what I said. With the Arcane Trickster, I said, I'm not sure why the spell school restriction is there at all anymore, since you could just switch out those spells when you go up in levels. Versatile Trickster is my favorite addition here. With the Assassin subclass, I said I like this a lot more than the 2014 version. Envenom Weapons feels like the feature the Assassin always should have had. I'm glad the features don't depend on surprise anymore. And with the Swashbuckler subclass, this one I just said satisfied, and I said for the most part I like the Swashbuckler here. I like every change they made. I just feel like level 3 could have been changed for the better as well. And then with the Thief subclass, I said very satisfied, but I did say I'm a little confused with the whole hand-hold thing for Climber. I think it could be clarified. And finally, we were done with the classes and on to the spells. And I said I was satisfied with most of the spells, very satisfied with a number of them, and very dissatisfied with Banishing Smite. So on Banishing Smite, I said, this shouldn't use concentration. Please get rid of the 50 hit point limit as well. If you're giving a saving throw, you don't need the hit point limit. Honestly, I would go back to the playtest for Banishing Smite, but just restrict it to melee weapons or unarmed strikes. That would be a solid spell. And then on Blinding Smite, so somebody in the comments pointed it out to me. I mentioned in that video where I was going over these spells that you don't get a saving throw against the initial effect, and that's really good. But I think there was supposed to be a saving throw on the initial effect. So what I said is, I'm not sure if the initial blinding effect is supposed to have a saving throw, because as written it doesn't. But later in the spell it says, the blinded target repeats the saving throw. What saving throw? There was no saving throw. I don't even know what ability score that saving throw is supposed to be tied to. So yeah, obviously they just made a mistake on that one. And I left comments on Divine Smite because I know a lot of people are going to be bashing on it. So I wanted to put in my opinion that I am fine with this being a bonus action spell. It's the least interesting of the Paladin Smite options anyways. And I promise we're getting really close. So we move on to Feats now. And I said overall, I was satisfied with Feats. I said I was very satisfied with the ability score improvement. And then Fighting Style Protection I was dissatisfied with. So varying opinions on those two. All the other feats were the same, except the Fighting Styles all now have a different prerequisite. They all require that you have the Fighting Style feature. So on the ability score improvement feat, I said, I like the option to increase an ability score to 22 at 19th level. And that's basically the change. I think it's a good change. And then comments on the Fighting Style Protection feat. I said I preferred the revised Fighting Style Protection. That's the one we used to have in this playtest. Now they've gone back to the old version. The old version wasn't very good. And that was it, except for additional comments. And so this is what I said. I said the bright spots in this document are the Rogue class and subclasses, the Trickery domain, the Circle of the Land and Circle of the Sea, and the new Paladin Smite feature tied to Smite spells. that I actually want to use. I do think it would be nice if all smite spells were standardized to not use concentration. The monk was the biggest disappointment of not just this playtest, but of the entire Player's Handbook playtest so far. I don't know if the designers realize that there is a big portion of the D&D community that think monks are pretty weak, so locking them out from the best feats and fighting styles, and making weapon mastery a bad option for them, all seems so bizarre. Perhaps the designers think that the monk is way too powerful, but if this goes through, a lot of us will never play this class again, because they'll be even weaker in comparison to all the other classes. The Ranger was given some feel-bad features here, and that was the problem with the 2014 Ranger, so I don't understand why we're going back in that direction. My understanding was the 2014 Ranger was unpopular. Anyways, that is the end of the survey, and it took me 5 hours to do it. But if you're cutting and pasting, not making as many comments as me, you can get through it much, much faster. I encourage anybody who cares about the future of this game to do the survey, because that feedback really does make a difference. We see them responding to the feedback every single time. So when something's really good, telling them you really like it means it's going to stay. And if something's really bad, telling them you don't like it means they're going to change it. So part of the reason I'm doing this video is to hopefully make it easier for you to do the survey, so maybe you're more likely to do so. Thanks everyone for your time. I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun, and give my fingers a rest. They're sore from typing. And D&D is for everyone. Thanks everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.